Do you feel safe in the city you live in? Would you allow your wife to go out by herself after dark? Will you let your children play in the streets around your neighborhood? I'm Erik Stern, and this is what we're talking about today on The Drive. Let's jump into it. I asked, do you feel safe in the neighborhood you live in? Do you feel safe in the city you live in? Comment below and let me know where you're from and if you do actually feel safe in the city you live in. I mean, are there parts of the city that, even if you do feel safe in your neighborhood, are there parts of the city you live in that you don't feel safe in? This is what I'm talking about today. Now, there's a big uproar right now about crime and punishment and Donald Trump sending National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. and talking about doing it in Chicago. I want to give you my thoughts on this subject and tell you the reasons why I feel the way I do about the whole topic. Crime is definitely running amok in a lot of our major cities. Criminals are basically allowed to do whatever they want to do. They're slapped on the hand and they're let back out to commit more crimes. That's if they're even arrested at all. And in a lot of cities, they're not even getting arrested when people break the law. You got the homeless people running amok and doing whatever they want to do, and the police basically do nothing about it. Why would they? If they do anything about it, the liberal DAs and the liberal government in these cities is just going to cut those people loose anyway. So I can understand why police would be a little bit apprehensive of even arresting people, because it's a useless endeavor in a lot of cases. Now, this crime is happening in a lot of cities, and the majority of those cities are blue cities, liberal-run cities, where you have mayors and governors just basically saying that there's no problem in their cities. Let's take Chicago, for example. Chicago is one of the most dangerous places on the planet. There was more deaths this year than there was last year so far. The crime is just horrible in Chicago. And the people that live there, I imagine, are pretty fed up. From what I've been seeing on the news, a lot of the people in the lower class areas, the lower income areas of Chicago are fed up and would really like to have some police in their area to keep them safe. But this just isn't happening. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is the context of the whole deal. I actually heard Governor Pritchard on TV, on the news, and he said that Chicago doesn't have a crime problem. They have a gun problem. That has to be one of the most ridiculous statements that I've ever heard coming out of an adult. How can you have a gun problem and not have a crime problem? Last time I checked, guns can't commit crimes. Humans do, people do. A gun is nothing more than a tool that is used to commit a crime, to commit murders, and to prevent murders as well. But for the governor to actually make a statement like that, that just shows how stupid and how ridiculous it is. It shows how stupid and ridiculous this governor actually is. I mean, we don't have a crime problem, we have a gun problem. What a moron. All right, anybody that would vote for this guy deserves to have criminals come up in their house and rob them. Well, no, I take that back. Nobody deserves it, but if it's going to happen to anyone, it should be somebody that says that Chicago doesn't have a crime problem, because they most certainly do. And the reason why I'm picking on Chicago so much right now is because Donald Trump, our president, wants to send National Guard troops and federal law enforcement into the city of Chicago to help them clean up their crime problem, to help them fix it for the people that live there, for the love of God. Well, this governor is totally against that or anything else that stops crime in his city. He's been allowing it to go on, and he'll probably continue to allow it to go on, because in his opinion, there's obviously much better things to spend money on than protecting his constituents. Why anybody would put up with that is beyond me. Again, why anybody would vote for him is beyond me. The mayor of Chicago is no better. But they're fighting Donald Trump, and they don't want the president to send anybody in there to help them with law enforcement because, as I said, he claims they don't have a problem. It's all the guns' fault. The guns are committing the crime. What a buffoon. That guy, how he ever became governor. But it's not just him. It's the governor in a lot of these larger liberal-run blue cities. I work in Denver, Colorado, and it's not much better here. Governor Polis has basically spent money on anything and everything except for getting criminals off and taking care of the incredibly large, bad homeless problem that is here in Denver. So it's not just Chicago. New York is no better. Atlanta is no better. All these blue-run cities have the same type of issues with law and order in their cities. And why these governors and why these mayors continue to get elected is beyond me. If I lived in those cities, I would want policing. I would invite Donald Trump into Denver to help clean up the homeless problem here. I hope we're next. Because obviously the politicians and the government, local governments in these areas are going to do nothing. I can't understand what their motive is and why they wouldn't do anything to help their constituents feel safe in the cities they live in or the states they live in. But there's obviously bigger fish for them to fry, in their opinion. To me, that's the government's whole job, okay, is to make its citizens safe, to do everything in its power to keep its citizens safe. That, to me, is the #1 job of government. And these politicians these politicians just seem to ignore the whole deal about keeping their citizens safe. I know I'm probably going to get a whole lot of slack for this video because I'll get a bunch of people commenting, telling me how dumb I am and how wrong I am. And look, I don't claim to be the smartest guy on the planet, but if you think I'm wrong, tell me in the comments below. Tell me why I'm wrong. I would like to have some good common sense reasoning of why it's not a good idea to make the streets in our cities safe for the people that live there so they don't have to be concerned about having crimes committed upon them as soon as they leave their homes. I would love to hear your reasons why you think that's a good idea. So if you have any comments and you want to give me some shit about that, go ahead and comment. But I'm pretty sure that most of us citizens out there lean towards where I lean, which is, yeah, we should expect and we deserve to be safe in our, we deserve for our politicians and our local governments to make sure that we have enough policing to keep us safe. We deserve for our politicians in the areas that we live in, if they can't keep us safe, then we deserve for the federal government to step in and make us safe and provide that law enforcement and provide that safety to its citizens. We deserve that. Why do we deserve that? Well, we deserve it because we pay their salaries. Our taxes pay for us to be safe, federally and local. So why would we expect anything less than what the bare minimums are for keeping us safe in our cities? I'll tell you now, I work in Denver. I don't live in Denver. I work in Denver. But if I did live in Denver, I don't think I would want my wife going out after dark and going pretty much anywhere in Denver. And if I lived in Denver, I definitely wouldn't let my small kids go out and play in any of the neighborhoods unless you're in Cherry Creek. And in Cherry Creek, you know, they got their own security out there, and the police force definitely takes care of them because, well, that's the rich community in Denver. It's not just Chicago, it's pretty much everywhere. Donald Trump did federalize law enforcement in Washington, D.C., And at first, the mayor there wanted to do the same thing kind of that the governor of Chicago's doing and the mayors in these other liberal cities were doing, and wanted just to oppose it because it was something Donald Trump did, even though it was probably going to work. And guess what? It did work. He put the National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. He put federal law enforcement in D.C. He activated them. And guess what they've been able to do? They've been able to clean up the streets in a short matter of time in Washington, D.C. The statistics show it and nobody can deny it. Not even the Democrat liberal mayor of Washington, D.C. She has even had to admit that what Donald Trump and our federal government is doing to clean up Washington, D.C., well, it works. And she has even admitted it works and has become a proponent of it. So if it works in a city like Washington, D.C., why wouldn't it work in Chicago or New York or Denver? Well, the simple answer is it would. Okay? Just like it's worked in Washington, D.C., it would work in these other cities. So if we know it works and we know it's a proven method, why wouldn't the governors and mayors of these cities invite for that to happen in their major cities and in their states to keep their citizens? Why wouldn't they just love for that opportunity? Even politically, I don't understand why they wouldn't do it, because if they go for it, even though they're giving up to Donald Trump, and by, asking for federal assistance, they would have to admit that Donald Trump was right. Well, that's why they're not doing it, because it's more important for them to differentiate themselves from Donald Trump because of their Trump syndrome. It's more important for that than to make sure that their citizens are safe. To me, folks, that's a form of dementia of some sort. That's some sort of mental illness. Okay? To just oppose everything just because your political opponent is a proponent of something and you oppose it just because of that, well, you know what? You're not looking out for the citizens of your state or your city. Again, it falls back to, why are these people getting elected? How can these people be getting elected? I advise to people that do live in these large cities and do worry about going outside at night or scared to let their children literally go out and play outside. I urge you to get these bums thrown out of your government. You deserve better. Why continue to vote these people in when they obviously could care less about you or your family? Folks, you gotta smarten up and you gotta stand up. You deserve better. That's all I got for today. We'll see you next time on The Drive.